Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Well, welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. I am extremely excited about our guest today. He is a pioneer in the sauna industry, 27-time Ultraman runner, and the winner of the inaugural Antarctica 50 Ultra Marathon this past March. He has founded an endurance race that supports facing financial strains of cancer treatment and rehabilitation. Please welcome the founder of SISU Lifestyle and Hell on Hogsback, Pete Nelson. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you so much, Greg. Appreciate the intro. It's going to be a really fun episode to be able to chop it up with you.
Awesome, man. 50K. I can't wait to get into that. Well, first of all, we love to talk about endurance and the endurance mindset. Pete, how has your endurance mindset impacted your life unexpectedly?
It's a great question. So my father and I think this is where to really answer it, where it stems from. My father and I, when I was 17, he was 48. He decided to quit smoking cold turkey and go into running. And one of his friends was talking about these ultra marathons, and my dad being a runner growing up and kind of staying loosely in shape as a runner, decided to go cold turkey into marathon and ultra marathon running. And that's when he got hooked and then asked me to join him. And with very limited training, I decided to join in on a 50K with him when I was still in high school. And I got absolutely tossed by that race. And I got tossed by my dad too. And it was great because it taught me a very, very valuable life lesson in that challenges are challenges, but like when you're faced with this endeavor such as a 50K, where the most you've ran up to that point was about 5 miles, and you're doing it with your dad, an amazing thing could happen. And that's like this equity in relationships and this involvement of relationships. And so when you look at endurance, to me, endurance doesn't happen without relationships and without grit and without you understanding that you're going to have a plan and that plan's going to go off course. And that's what happened on this 50K when I leaned in with my dad to complete it. And that's what created this cascading effect across my life, that yes, we need to say yes to challenges and we need to create plans, but the best stories always happen when you're in the pits with somebody that you love or somebody that you just met and now you love them after, for helping them get you through that time. And you get to see the end outcome just continue to be personified through the rest of your life. That's what I'm really addicted to with endurance.
Man, that's awesome. Let's dive in a little bit deeper around training and competing with your dad. My wife and I do long distance triathlon, and we've done this now for 10 years. And there's something, to your point, really special about competing together and knowing that the other person's out there on the course. Can you talk to that a little bit? You go a little bit deeper?
Yeah. So there's something about the suffering together, whether or not that's, let's say if I'm on a 100-mile race and I have my crew and I have my pacer team. Well, it's all work, but it's all done for like the specific outcome, and that's to get you across the finish line in your goal time. But little do people know that it's the crew and the pacer during the act of that really forges this narrative and story that we always speak about. Nobody ever talks about how they completed this 100-mile run. They always talk about like what happened during the 100-mile run once you complete it. And I always thought going into my first 100 that it was the 100-mile completion that was going to unlock all these doors for me, but I didn't realize it was all the meandering and all the crazy segues that happened during this 100-mile journey that created uh, this life that I really love to live. And so like to kind of like pick up on that even more, I think about that pacing point around like 50 miles into like a 100-mile race where you can finally pick up a pacer. And I brought friends on for my first 100 that never had really ran before. I just knew that they were a good time and they like kind of like the party a little bit, you know? So I would put somebody in for 8 to 9 miles, and we're just joking around with each other. And then I would strategically put somebody at that 70 to 80 mile mark that is somebody that I know that could really lift up I guess you could say, is somebody that would be able to help get me out of the dumps if if I'm hitting the wall really bad at 80 miles in. And so I think like strategically putting different personality types at different spots of the race helps. And my dad and I've been on the pacing end for him multiple times where if he's on a 100 miler, I'm pacing the last 50 with him, or I'm pacing the last 20 with him to, be able to navigate those emotional journeys that everybody navigates in the last 20, 30 miles. So I really think that the relationship side is key. And if you are in these larger and longer endurance races, you really have to strategically place specific personality sets to be able to best set you up for success. Because I've been on the other end where like I put the wrong person in at the wrong time,
Mhm, mhm.
and set you up for failure sometimes.
So educate me a little bit more on these 50, 100 milers. Are you training with your pacers as well? Are they part of that part of it? Or is it just they show up on race day and you hope they've got 15 miles in their legs and there's a couple jokes to tell you?
It is exactly the latter. We do not train together. Typically, my head crew chief is somebody that has done multiple of these events with me, understands what I need. We've got a process dialed in, and then we kind of plug and play with the people that are available at certain times. Sometimes we'll make it more of a community effort where we'll bring like 3 to 4 people in because it's fun. Not that we need 3 to 4 people. Typically, like one good pacer to be able to get you across the finish line within your goal time is all that's really needed. But we do not train together with pacers. Sometimes my running partners that I have during the week are my pacers, but I definitely know everybody that is pacing me come race day.
And then during the race, is the anticipation of the next pacer also driving you? Is it like get us into the weeds of what it feels like, the emotion. It's like, oh, I can't wait to drop Greg because Monique's coming up.
That's a good question. It compartmentalizes the run to where it's these little pockets and windows where I know that I'm going to be with somebody for 10 miles and I just need to get through the next 10 miles. So it gives you that next person to look forward to. Not that you're looking to drop the person that you're currently with, but it's just the sequential order of running an ultra. But I will say that my wife came on to pace me at mile 95 of a race to like get me over the finish line. And we also wanted to just enjoy the last 5 miles together of this race. But let me tell you, man, for whatever reason, I saw my wife at mile 95 and it was like my body shut down. It was like, okay, she's my safe zone. I could finally let my guard down. And I joked around with her. I was like, I should have left you at a mile 100. That way you could. I had this like, I didn't let my guard down. My safe spot wasn't there. It was like get across the finish line, and then you could let your guard down. So we joke around that if she's going to be in a race doing pacing, she'll be earlier on in the race where it's like, all right, first pace, let's go, versus like the very last one, I'm finally home. Let's just, your world kind of comes crashing down in a good way, in the best way possible.
That's awesome. I suspect you've got an epic story that you like to tell that somebody said something to you, or give us one of the deep down emotional gut punching stories that you have from one of those races.
Yeah, it was actually the one there's two that jumped to mind. They were actually my first two ultras. The first one, it was a 3 11-mile loop. And mind you, the most I ran up to this point was 5 to 6 miles. And we were just coming off the prior night of being at a Cleveland Indians game. And it was dollar hot dog night. And we were crushing food. And we got back. There was a massive rain delay. We didn't get back home until 1 a.m. And we had to be up at 3 a.m. to get down to Southern Ohio for a 6 a.m. race. And a loop and a half on this, so 16 miles in. I I just get down on all fours and I just couldn't take another step. In my mind, I could not take another step. And then I get into almost, like I'm sitting in my butt, my knees are up in my chest. I'm kind of like I'm really holding and fighting back tears. And my dad comes up behind me, and I'll never forget what he told me. And I'll tell you verbatim exactly what he said, but he came up, he's 48, I'm 17. And he said, "You're going to let a 48-year-old beat you, big pussy." And I'll never forget that because I'm like, man, I'm going to let this guy beat me. I was okay with it at the moment. And then it jarred at me for a bit. He just kept going. He kept going past the aid station just at his own pace. And I'll never forget my dad telling me that because him and I always talk trash a little bit as playing basketball growing up, throwing bows at each other and whatnot. But that was the first moment where I'm like, okay, game on. So after a few minutes, I collected myself and I got back up and I kept going and I hallucinated a little bit. And mind you, at this point, there was zero electrolyte supplementation when I was 17. There was no fueling strategy, barely ate. I'm basically running off hot dogs from the night prior. And I finally catch back up to my dad about a loop in and then stay with him. And then I burned him at the finish line. And I was crying, sobbing in tears. But there was that moment halfway through that race where my dad called me out and was like, "Don't be soft." And it may seem like real tough love, but I'm so appreciative that he told me to pucker up. You got this, but don't let your old man beat you. That it really set up a very competitive but loving relationship. There's no ill will or anything. Like he's a legend, and I'm always down for a little competitive juice to fuel the grind.
Yeah, you've got me fired up just thinking about it. Pete, you've talked about the importance of relationships as you're taking on these long races, these endeavors. How do you see that show up in your life, in your business?
Yeah. So I see it show up so often. I think that there's the grit portion of it where if it's time to go and you need to get work done, you just get it done.
Mm.
If there's a project or if there's a longer task to be had, you compartmentalize very similarly to a longer endurance race. So I'm always a big fan of figuring out like what needs to happen, backwards plan, and understand that there's going to take multiple steps to get there, but not to get caught up that like this massive thing needs to get done, but let's just get this first part done and then the second part done. And eventually you'll work your way through. The other thing that I've seen more times than not recently is the role of a team. People think that running, Ironman triathlon training, like golf is a one man sport. It's not. It's a team sport. There's no way that any of these people get to their finish line, setting records, being able to tell these stories without the team behind them. And when you have a vision of what needs to happen and you have the team that understands the vision and is going to execute on the vision, that's where amazing things happen. And I see that all the time in business where I have this vision of what needs to happen and we have the right people that are not only like, yeah, I'll do it, but it's like raw skill set, raw passion, and they have the capacity to be able to get it through. It's the same parallel with ultra endurance and endurance racing for that matter. Um, the other thing too is to me is like the recap. I don't know if you do this with what your race is, but I get through a race and I'm thinking two things. One, what's next? And then two, what can I have done differently to have had a better outcome?
Mm.
A lot of times it's just me and my business coach yells at me all the time for this. I shouldn't say yells, but like gets after me all the time for this. He says you have to appreciate like where you've come from, the things you've accomplished. Don't always just think about like the things that didn't go well to make your future better. But you need to understand that gap in the gain story of you had this gap, or I should say you had this gain of massive progress. And now you have this gap in front of you, but don't only be focused on this gap. You have to focus on like the amazing things that happen. And so this AAR mentality, after action review, that we used to have in the military, of when we had a specific outcome happen or we carried out a battle plan or whatever it was, we'd always look back upon what had occurred, and we look at this is what went well, this is what did not go well, and then we apply it for the next bout. So like for example, this Sunday I'm doing my very first marathon, and I'm gonna have an AAR immediately after, or probably even during it, based off of how I'm feeling of like, hey, I probably should have slowed down, or I should have sped up then, or I should have had more carbs, or I shouldn't have had, the nutrient timing. And those are the notes that you make to be able to next best up your future performances.
That's great insight. And you're spot on about, appreciating the gains and keeping that in perspective when you've got a gap in front of me. Um, you mentioned hiring right people or having the right people on the team. Do you have a trick to finding the right people?
Another really good question, Greg. There's multiple there's multiple avenues I look at, really primarily three, when I look at hiring people or getting people to jump on for an idea or in an endeavor like an ultra. And that's one, there needs to be a 1 degree of separation. So I need to I need to know through one person if I should say, like, I'm not going on Thumbtack or Indeed or whatnot to be able to find somebody within my network. I'm 1 degree separated from the correct hire.
Mm.
What that does, it instills trust in that, like, that person that is linking and connecting us, trust that that person could get the job done based off of what my vision is for that role or whatever the process is that I need them to own. So the 1 degree of separation is absolutely massive because it instills trust. Two, they have to be a GWC. A GWC in EOS terms is get it, want a capacity to do it. Get it in that they have complete competency to be able to carry out said objective, said process. They want it in that there's like a genuine purpose and passion behind it. And then capacity to do it, they actually have the time to be able to do that. So 1 degree of separation, GWC, and then the last thing is value set. So to me, what I care about more than anything is my family, my faith, my health and wellness, and driving forward with a impactful business. Like, those are my primary value sets. Anybody that I'm going to bring onto the team needs to be in similar values. Like, I'm not going to bring on somebody more than likely that doesn't understand that, like, my time with my kids and my family matters to me. Same thing with my faith. Same thing with my training. So those are the filters, and it lets me be able to get super specific on who's going to be that perfect bullseye for the team, so I could just make a quick decision and move forward.
So I have to ask, when did you discover EOS? Because it's a super powerful tool.
It's an extremely powerful tool. I toyed around with it in my previous business with the gym with Black Flag Athletics. We pulled a couple characteristics of it, but never really implemented it. And then my business partner, Nick Daddis, who's an incredible business mind, he fully implemented EOS in his main business, University Tees. And so when we looked at trying to create this brand and this organization, we knew that we needed everybody operating on one language and one operating system, hence the EOS model, where I was touching it a little bit. He was fully implementing it. Why not bring that all the way through into scale? And that's allowed us to be able to have extremely efficient meetings, be able to keep everything organized, diagnosed, also from a organization structure and process structure, keeps things very black and white. And one thing that I really appreciate about EOS is that typically if you have an issue with an employee, it's very, very rare that on initial instinct, when you're looking at a person not performing well, that it's actually the person's fault versus the process's fault. And so that comes back to you as the owner. You look at, all right, was the process documented well enough? Was your scope of work documented well enough? And if it wasn't, well, that's on me. But if I was clearly communicating to you and you understand what winning looks like in your position, you're not getting it done, then that's a different issue. We've really, really experienced that within our company thus far.
And have you seen aspects of EOS translate into your training and your racing?
That's a good question. I think that there's levels of structure to my training. There's levels of time blocking to my training that have to fit. I will definitely say that the delegate and elevate mentality that EOS preaches in terms of trying to making sure that you're not reacting versus being able to stay proactive in your approach has let me be able to safeguard my time to be able to train during the day. So I'll understand that these are my pockets to train early AM, midday, and in the evening. I then fit into my schedule. If things during that hour need to be delegated out, then they're delegated. Um, but if it's really a me thing, then I time block for it during the day. But that ability to be able to delegate specific tasks for me to be able to continue to get the things that really matter to me done is an important factor to my lifestyle.
And how far out are you time blocking?
I have things on the calendar for the next year, but every single week I have a set schedule. So when you look at my Monday through Friday schedule, I have a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday foundation day, and I have a Tuesday, Friday payday, if you will. A payday is simply a day where I'm generating revenue and impact for the business. And then Monday, Wednesday, Thursday are the days that are more project focused, internal team focused, making sure like the ball is still moving, vision, as well as the curation and setup for those revenue generating days, typically the days of my travel.
That's helpful. I'm a time blocking nut, and I'm always looking for better hacks. I'm going to shift gears on you for a little bit. Talk to us about your entrepreneurial journey. How did you get into SISU? How was that business created? And then let's get into the details of what you are offering.
Yeah. So Sisu is a Finnish word for perseverance, tenacity, bravery, and grit. And it's a term and it's a way of life that Finns embody to create fulfillment in their lives through pursuing things that are gritty or unfortunately having to deal with times in life that become gritty. And it's something that in the United States we need more of because we're looking for that easy convenience, that easy out, if you will, instead of really taking life head on and getting more fulfillment and joy out of it. So Sisu came about in early uh, 2020, where my business partner, not my now business partner, and I wanted to start up this little side hustle where we wanted to sling saunas on the side. He owned a couple businesses at the time: University Tees, Iron Sharpens Iron, Master Plan Coaching. For me, it was Black Flag Athletics. I was a trainer, manager, owner, and he came in as a client. That's where we met. He just got out of the XPT Hawaii with Garrett, Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese. Tim Ferriss was there. He just got out of the barrel sauna at his house, at Laird Hamilton's house. Came back, bought the sauna. He was raving about it, and I checked it out. He then was like, "Hey, there's this opportunity here where there's no dealer in Ohio for Laird Hamilton sauna, the manufacturer, so we could potentially get the rights to being able to sell the saunas." And at the time, I'm 24 years old, and sure, yes, yeah, 100% I'm in. And so we ended up buying a sauna for our house through the dealership, and then would sell a sauna every other month, like one unit every other month, and it was just fun. And then COVID hit, and we saw a myriad of issues across the board in the sauna industry, and specifically in Ohio. Ohio is not the right market for sauna. There's many other markets that are much better for sauna, but all that to say, we hit a 12-month stretch without a single sauna sale. And in March of 2022, we were on an early morning trail run, and we're talking about how him and his wife were about to buy a local library and convert it to a school. Our gym brand that we grew from 30 members to 400 plus members is still taking off. Let's just go in our own separate ways. It's 5:30 a.m. We got our headlights on. We make this decision. 10 minutes of like kind of silence. We're just meandering on these single track trails in Cleveland, Ohio. And something came to our hearts to say, hey, there's actually solutions to the problems that you're experiencing. And so, like any entrepreneur, lights just start going off in your head. And we all of a sudden looked at each other on this run and said, wait a second, why did we decide to dissolve this dealership? Let's actually create solutions. And so we started doing all the what ifs of Well, what if the lead times look like this? What if all the wood came from this area? And what if the craftsmen were these types of people? And then what if it was this heater and these types of saunas? And by the end of the run, we ended up agreeing that the best next step is actually to double down and manufacture these things ourselves. So it was a true leap of faith. It could have easily blown up in our faces, but it was the right move. And that was March of 22. August of 22, we launched and relaunched the brand as we now know it, Sisu, after an 18-month stretch without a single sale now at that time. And we sold 8 saunas that first month, and that's when we knew something was here. We didn't know how big it could be. We didn't know the reach that we would have, but we understood what the right thing to do was, and that was really to marry quality, simplicity, and trust into a sauna brand and start curating a lifestyle around it. And so now we just got done celebrating year two or birthday number 2 on August 1. And we went from a 1 SKU company when we launched in August 1 of 2022 to a 4 SKU company now in August 1 of 2024. And we've done our best to keep things super, super digestible and simple. And it's allowed us to be able to scale and have so much fun and grow the team and just genuinely make a good impact.
I love that story. You just mentioned you went from 1 SKU 2 years ago to 4 now. Talk to us about the R&D side of it. Are you looking at competitors' structure and setups, or is it you just sitting on or out on a run and you come up with a different design idea? Like, talk to us about your R&D process.
So the R&D process, when we started the company, we originally we were going to start with 4 SKUs. And thank God we didn't, because one was enough for us to learn. And that allowed us to be able to learn with our customers and be their biggest fans and for them to become our biggest fans. So when we launched in August of 22, the original idea was small cabin, large cabin, small barrel, large barrel. And when we launched it, it was just the large barrel with no roof kit. And then through trial and error of listening to our customers and more testing on our end, we devised the roof kit. So when I think it was maybe early November of 2022, we launched the roof kit. So that became a variant for the 1 SKU. So that effectively made the Edwin barrel with roof kit or without roof kit. And then we listened to more and more of our customers that they wanted a 2-person sauna, hence the reason why we created the Eddy barrel, like the little brother to the Edwin. And then we used the same exact structure of roof kit, non-roof kit. And that was kind of a shot in the dark to be like, yeah, like, let's see what happens. We're listening to our customers. There's really no customer analysis or data supporting this decision outside of just raw gut instinct. And that quickly became our bestseller. So we kept ripping through and we kept thinking about the cabin, the square design along the way, even prior to the launch of Sisu. And we had an idea of what we wanted it to look like. And it wasn't until midway point of 2023 that we started putting tons of pen to paper, first units being made, testing. The testing failed miserably. The structure failed miserably. It just didn't look right, feel right. And so we had to cut that back, go back to the drawing board, look at what's performing well, what people are asking for, what the best types of sauna are that people are always looking for, that are like true sauna enthusiasts, but don't necessarily want to break the bank. And that's where we ended up deciding on this like rounded square model that still looks and feels like Sisu, but it has the 36-inch and 18-inch bench that creates that true Finnish style of sauna bathing where your feet are above the stone. Lots of glass, but not too much glass on the front to where you feel private, but still a lot of light coming on in. And we also did like obviously an analysis of our competition to see like what sells well, what doesn't sell well. And we just did our best to find, all right, this is the best performing product across some of these other brands. I don't want to steal the idea, but like, how could we just continue to make it better? And that's where we married our ideas with what we wanted to do with what we've been seeing that has worked well to create the now Crew and Charlie Cabin saunas, which are named after our kids.
That's fantastic. Pete, any unexpected ups or downs across that entrepreneurial journey that you want to talk about?
Uh, Gosh, how long do we have? Man, there's a number of low moments. There's a lot of high moments. I think the thing that I struggle with the most, even though I do my best to prioritize it, number one, is my family time. Because Sisu is so passionate and purposeful for me, it's really easy to just continue to say yes to opportunities and no, but like it can become very consuming. And so the first year of it ascending, I didn't, yeah, I mean, essentially you're just kind of going down this endless hallway that's black in front of you. You just have no idea. Like you're just figuring it out. You don't know like if you're going to hit the wall or not. And you just keep going. And next thing you do, like you look back and you say, wow, my life has changed in a good way. But along the way, I've had to learn the best ways to uh, make sure I'm prioritizing my time with my wife and my kids, my time for myself for training, prioritizing my sleep, the right nutrition, my time for my friends, and not lose sight of what has given me success up to this point, but also at the same time, what gives me fulfillment. And so navigating that time has been was more difficult than I thought, but it was still extremely rewarding. So I'd like to say that for any entrepreneur that is building something that you don't know how big it could potentially get, just understand that like it's no matter what going to be a struggle. I don't care what anybody says. You could have the perfect plan in place, but enlist the help of others to help get you across there. That way you can continue to prioritize what is most important. And again, that's family, my time with my wife and whatnot. So that's one. Um, a high moment that I will never forget was Black Friday, Cyber Monday of this past year. We went into Black Friday, Cyber Monday with maybe like a sale, like one or two sales, the 7 days leading up to Black Friday. And I remember thinking like, man, our hopefully our Black Friday crushes because this is low for us. And we need some sales to start turning. And all of a sudden, Black Friday sale launches and it was like notification, 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 like Shopify's ripping through. And I'm texting my business partner, I'm texting our team, like, wow, like what is going on? And it was a full week of just what is going on right now. And it got us realizing that there's tons of sauna seasonality in the industry space. But at the same time, that was one of those moments of, okay, this is really cool. I can't believe that we have this type of reach and impact. It was reassuring too from all the brand marketing that we did going into it because it far exceeded what we thought we were going to do from a forecasting perspective. But it was also a time very similarly to the ultra space. All right, these people purchased. Now we have to freaking execute, and we got to execute hard and exceed the expectation and do this the right way, the Sisu way. So it was both this really cool galvanizing moment, reassuring moment, God moment, if you will, but also a time for our team to be like, all right, let's go to work. And that was a moment I'll never forget.
That's fantastic. I'm going to switch topics on you briefly. Talk to us about this race, Hell on Hogsback. Like, what does it benefit? When did it get started? Where do I sign up?
Yeah, I love it. So we just this past Saturday, or I should say the prior Saturday, was year two of Hell on Hogsback. Hogsback is this incredible hill in the metro parks of Cleveland, Ohio, and Cleveland has probably the most underrated metro park system in the entire United States. I've been all around, and they just have it's super well maintained. Tons of single track trail, tons of river, nestled right up against the lake. It's gorgeous. Anyways, Hell on Hogsback is a 12-hour ultra endurance event. There's a 1 hour, 3 hour, and a 12-hour option. And 100% of the proceeds go to a cancer patient in need who cannot fund the lifestyle or medical costs um, due to their cancer treatment and their cancer bills. So, and their medical treatment. This all started from when my dad got diagnosed with tongue cancer 2 years ago in late 2022. It was November, and at that point, he had ran 145 marathons or greater distance in about 10 years, 11 years, and so it was definitely like a hit to the wind in his sails. And he went in for his procedure in January of 2023, and they had to remove a portion of his tongue and recreate a tongue for him. He had to learn how to speak. And then he ended up also having a really nasty stroke. And that stroke, they had to catheterize to the top of his head and also open up the backside of his head and neck to be able to relieve pressure because he was about to go into a brain aneurysm. And so through that stroke, he had to relearn how to walk. So it was in March of 23, so last year, that we would drop the kids off at our sitter. I would go over to his house. We would get him up on the treadmill and we would try to get him to walk step by step and relearn how to walk and basically get basic function back. It's an extremely frustrating time too because he's also trying to relearn how to talk. Mm. So you can imagine being 60 years old, being an incredible athlete, incredible guy, philanthropist, the whole bit, and then having this hard reset. And during that time where he was at the hospital, I realized that there's not a lot of people that have the ability to be able to say yes to procedures and accept medical bills like he did to be able to just continue on with his life. And his procedure lasted 12 hours long. And I was like, man, how cool would it be if we had 5 to 10 guys just go run Hogsback for 12 hours and raise some money for a cancer patient? And so I didn't think it was going to be anything crazy. I had a friend, Nick Stadler, come over. We were chatting about it. Why not just galvanize a group of guys? Let's do it on this day and let's just promote it on social media and see what happens. And the first year, mind you, we thought we were going to have 5 to 10 people. We had 82 runners last year. And my dad ran in the event 4 months after getting that diagnosis, or I should say after starting to learn how to walk, and he ran 39 miles up and down that hill. It was so inspiring. And fast forward to this year, year 2, we had 225 people. So it's just really turned into this incredible event and just this awesome way of forging community and grit, everything that I believe in one spot. And my dad's part of it each year, and he's kind of like the figurehead for the race, which is cool. He doesn't have any social media, so we try to push the social on that race toward him.
Oh, what's a powerful story. I got one last question for you. One of the principles of endurance leadership, in my perspective, is a long-term perspective, having a long-term perspective. Any reflection on that?
It's so funny. I probably need more of your perspective because I always try to keep a 6 to 12 month outlook on top of mind. I never really look at the next 5 to 10 years. I typically will say yes to the things that are going to give me tons of energy and tons of fulfillment in the next 6 to 12 months, as long as they stay fit within my value set. And my wife says yes, and she has my full support. And my kids say yes, and they have my full support. Because I've realized in my life, in my short time on earth so far, that we could have these incredible plans, but oftentimes when the plans go off script is when our best stories come about. And if I try to project too far out, oftentimes I'm setting myself up for failure. So what I typically do is I'll make my rough plans for the next 6 to 12 months. Yes, we'll forecast the 12 to 5, or I should say the 2 to 5 to 10 year, financials and whatnot. But I try not to put puzzle pieces together that are way too far out of my grasp right now. I just really stay focused on the next 6 to 12. And it just gives me so much joy, so much fulfillment. It makes me feel like I'm really living in the moment because I understand that life can change so fast and you have to appreciate it while it's happening.
You're 100% correct. It can go quickly for sure. Pete, if an audience member wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn as well as his Instagram, Peter Nelson II. You could shoot me an email or go onto our website as well to be able to learn more about all of our products. And if you have any questions regarding Hell on Hogsback or the race, just click the link in my bio on both of those platforms, and you'll be able to learn more.
Well, I appreciate you and the work that you and your team have been doing. You were super vulnerable today on our show, and I appreciate that as well, Pete. Good luck in your next race. Good luck in your entrepreneurial journey. I can't wait to continue to follow you. Audience members, if you got some value out of today's episode, please like the show. Please follow Pete. Please share this with your community. Let's get this message expanded so that others can learn and grow from it.
Thank you so much, Greg. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.